Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Evermore YouTube channel. It's Monday night, Mark. It's the same thing we ask every Monday night. What's going on? I'll tell you what's going on. The Premier League has paused for this ridiculous World Cup, and Newcastle United are sitting in third position. How mint is that, mate?
That's kind of good for you, isn't it? I've got World Cup fever now. I've got World Cup fever now. I saw an advert for it earlier on. I went, I'm genuinely excited now. That's really strange because I haven't been for months. It's just been ugh. But now I think I've caught the bug. So
you've caught the bug of the World Cup already. Well, to be fair, I'm not in the World Cup with my national team, as we all know. But I have enjoyed seeing Mr. Callum Wilson wearing that England tracksuit. My God, does he wear it well, my friend? Does he wear it well? So I'm sure we'll talk about that handsome devil in a minute, mate. But just before we do, a little bit of housekeeping, everybody. If you haven't clicked on already, please consider clicking that like and subscribe button. We're over 2,000 subscribers now. I think we're on about 2,035, which is amazing. So thank you so much to everybody who's done that. And obviously, if you haven't, give it a smash. We are live tonight, and jump in the comments as always. We've got some of our regulars already jumping in there. The good little chat going amongst you guys, which is absolutely brilliant. But yeah, so we'll get stuck in. Then we've got a few things to cover tonight on what's going on, and there's no better place to start, mate, is there? With Kai Havertz getting burned at St James's Park. And if anybody hadn't seen that, this is what happens when you know you've made a massive mistake. When you start on a bloke who's about 3.5 foot taller than you and will eat you and spit you out and possibly eat you again if he fancies it, mate, because he's from Blythe, he's a Raji, and he's massive.
I was going to say, of all the people to pick on, you pick on the kid from Blythe. It's not going to work for you, is it?
Listen, I know he's missing a finger, right, but he's still handy. You know what I mean? No pun intended. He'll kick your ass, Kai Havertz. I'm sorry. There we go. I've started early. Who needs Peter K? Yeah, but no, I mean, it was an interesting one because we were talking about this, weren't we, before we went into the game? And I think a lot of people didn't really remember. I mean, Christ, I never remembered until you reminded me that Kai Havertz was just smashed and burned in the napper with that elbow last season, and I couldn't remember that. I remembered the shithouse goal that he scored, and it really pissed me off. And I couldn't remember the elbow at all. But yeah, you reminded us, mate. So I think that was a definite Dan Burns' mind, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think he sort of bided his time, didn't he? He got away because Havertz didn't start, and then towards the end, there was a moment where Dan Burns just ran through him, and it was, I think, off the ball, and so, is that the moment he gets his revenge? I think I said, and it was just it was funny to see, and then it all just kicked off at the end. It was Jacob Murphy flying in from 50 yards away. Lascelles getting involved. It was just brilliant. And I think you mentioned as well on Twitter that the sight of Joe Willock just strolling onto the pitch as if nothing else was going on, just like, yeah, I won the game. Awesome. That was just,
it was brilliant. Yeah, I love that because Joe Willock's quite a laid back character anyway, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? He looks like he's kind of just woke up and went like, oh, what's this crack? What's going on? What time is it? You know what I mean? He's got that kind of look about him, and he's just woke up off the sofa after a little cheeky afternoon doze. All hell was breaking loose, and he just swanned onto the pitch. I thought it was absolutely class. BT's in the comments saying Havertz's challenge on Burn was described as reckless, and he was subsequently shown a yellow card. VAR checked the incident, decided against upgrading to red. I think he means the elbow, doesn't he? From last season, Mark. I think BT's talking about there. But yeah, I mean, it was a brilliant result. I know we're going to get stuck into it on Wednesday with the rest of the guys, but I think it was so weird. We're in this parallel universe now where teams like Chelsea come to Newcastle and play like Burnley. Like, what's going on, Mark? Literally, what's going on? What's going on with that?
What's going on? Yeah. I mean, it was almost, when you look at it, it's like Jose tactics, isn't it? Part of the bus and hope you get something. Dare I say it, Steve Bruce tactics.
Ooh.
I mean, those two words don't go next to each other, really. I mean, tactics and Steve Bruce never went together at all.
Tic-tacs is Steve Bruce, maybe.
That's more likely. Get rid of the kebab smell, I think, would be what they were used for. But yeah, it's strange to see when you consider, for years it's been teams like that come up to the Northeast and go, well, we'll walk away with a win. We just bide our time. You see it a couple of years as good as Newcastle had for 60 minutes last season, the season before. Chelsea got to 60 minutes, 65 minutes, then just turned up a notch, and that was it, done. 3 goals later, and they walk away. This is a different beast now. and teams are coming to St James's Park afraid. They're coming to try and stifle the crowd, stifle the play from the others. And you saw that a lot at the weekend, where a lot of Chelsea's focus was to stop Bruno. They focused a lot of attention on trying to stop his influence on the game, and despite that, he still managed to hold a big sway, and the rest of the team just all stepped up another level. Thought Willock was outstanding, and teams are going to do this now because Newcastle are a proper threat, and their only way to try and combat this at the moment is to come up and just try and stop you playing.
Absolutely. As Roger says there, mate, 10 in a row, 10 unbeaten, which, as Jack says as well, mint. It is absolutely mint. It really, really is. I mean, it was a weird game, wasn't it? I think I covered it on the live post match that, the first half I thought was a little bit edgy. I think we were pushing and we were probing and we were trying to get that win. And Chelsea were just awful. I mean, if you're a Chelsea fan, you travelled all that way and your squad's worth, what is it, £1 billion or something like that, and you watch them turn a performance like that, you want your money back, really. You really, really would. I'm sure the Chelsea fans come up and did their best and sang their hearts out. Not the shithouses who were on social media fighting after the game with whoever those supposed Newcastle fans were, which I think less said about that the better, Mark. Really.
Do you know what is that? There was a bit of that after the Villa game where I didn't see anything that happened. It was just the police just dispersed out of St James's Park and up the road. Away from the sort of city centre. So I don't know what had gone on. All the Villa fans had kind of come out that way, and then there were a lot of Newcastle fans that had sort of come out afterwards. And it didn't look to be any aggro. There didn't look to be any bother. None of the Villa fans looked really up for a fight. They were all pretty dejected at that point. But then all of a sudden, there must have been about 30 coppers just pegged it past us and just all headed up the hill. I was like, what the hell's going on here? So I'm outside trying to get signal on my phone, trying to sort out the thumbnail for the post-match thing. And it was just, so there is a little bit of that. And it seems to just be creeping back into the game again, where there are just groups. And I'm with you, because I know you said in our chat that I don't even think these are people that are at the game. These are just hanging around outside waiting for the opponent's fans to come out and then trying to start something. It's just looking. I hate it.
Yeah, looking for a fight. I mean, I think one of the lads in Newcastle Fan TV said that. He said that this is becoming quite frequent now. St James's Park is there's kids up the road looking for trouble, and half of them aren't at the game as well, to be honest with you. So it's just we don't need to say any more of that. Ian said he saw a bit of the Villa stuff, and it was just a lot of young lads from off the estate. Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think they're at the game. I mean, most Newcastle fans who go to the game, a lot of you guys do go to the game. We go to games, and people go to the pub afterwards, or they go home. Do you know what I mean? Or they get on the metro or the bus and they watch post-match reactions from YouTubers like us. You know what I mean? They don't go looking for a fight in the middle of the street. Do you know what I mean? It just doesn't make any sense to me. We've got Ash saying there that they would find out what was up with Bruno. He wasn't a happy chappy, was he? I heard he missed Evermore last week, Ash, and he was devastated. He wanted to jump in the comments and have a bit crap with you, mate. That's what I really heard. But we'll try and confirm.
We get Joe on, don't we, from time to time? Joe's just facing the chat, so.
Well, we're going to talk about Joe in a little bit of time, so he might pop in now. He's not going over to Qatar, which is interesting, actually. Just a little bit on Qatar. I know we're going to get stuck into this in a minute, but I was watching a thing the other day. It was on Sky. I don't know if you saw it. It was Gary Neville trying to talk about Qatar and talk about the what they've done in preparation for the World Cup and everything like that. And fucking hell, the words grasping at straws was definitely used. It was a bit when he spoke to the guys who were building the stadium. And you remember that scene? Asher like this in the comments. Remember that scene in Taken where he's looking for his daughter and he just finds them shipping containers with them poor lasses sitting in there. I swear to God, Mark, this is exactly where these guys were staying. And Gary Neville asked the bloke through an interpreter. He went, "And are you happy here? Do you like this?" And the guy said it in their native tongue, and he went, and the guy went, "Very happy." And I thought, well, what else is he going to say, Gary? No, it's shite. I'd rather be in the Travelodge down the road.
It's shite, and then he gets thrown out of the country the very next day. Yeah,
or worse. Yeah, always, mate,
Well, yeah,
always. But,
it's
but
just
yeah, listen,
honestly,
I mean,
when you've got
this
Sepp
will.
Blatter coming out now, and I know that's the biggest piss take in the world is Blatter coming out saying it should never have been given to them in the first place.
I know.
Why was it? It was given for one reason. It was backhanders, and it was money being paid to the likes of Platini to get it there in the first. It is nothing to do with football, nothing to do with football legacy. It was just pure greed.
Was that Sepp Blatter from his yacht was quoted in saying,
Yeah. His Qatari, yes.
as a beautiful model came and gave him a Mai Tai to sip on. Yeah, I don't think it should ever really been given to Qatar. You know, my honest opinion. Yeah, thanks, Sepp. You enjoy that, mate. You enjoy that. But going back to Dan Burn, obviously, mate. I just love. I mean, Dan Burn to me encompasses just that Geordie fighting spirit, doesn't he? I mean, there was a clip going around. I think it was 2 tackles, one after the other. By the way, Bruno's tackle. If he connected with that, he'd be missing 3 games when he come back, mate. Did you see that lunge that he tried to put on? Who was it? Was it Mason Mount or was it Kai Havertz or something? If you haven't seen it, it'll definitely be on Twitter. Bruno's ridiculous 2-footed lunge that he missed by about this much, and you thought, Bruno, what are you doing, mate?
There was one at the end of it, and I haven't. To be fair, and I think we talked about this the other night, but I haven't been back and watched it again. But there was one right towards the end, and I think it might have been Dan Burn.
It was. That's what I'm talking about. It was Longstaff. Longstaff went in. He flew in, and then Burn flew in, and I can't remember who it was. It might even been Brozier, possibly, or something. Just went up and over. It was a bit like that. Remember the Leicester clip when Rafa was in charge, and they were like smashing tackles in Shelby, and there was a couple of them just smashing in tackles and stuff like that. It was a little bit like that. So I think, I mean, it just goes to show you that not only we're tactically great as well, you know, and we'll have that quality on the ball with Bruno, you know, with Willock and Almiron and Wilson's movement, but we've also got a bit of fighting as well, mate, which is just absolutely class. It really, really is to see.
Absolutely right.
Roger saying there, he had a thought about this the other day. Russia was expected to be shite, and it was very well done. Yeah, I'm not questioning the facilities, Roger, to be honest with you, mate. I think the big question, obviously, about the World Cup is obviously where it is. And, you know, and you hear these stories. I mean, we'll get stuck into, you know, some of the lads going to the World Cup in a minute. But, you know, things about, I mean, the big thing that made me think about it, Mark, was the drinking thing, about how it's illegal to be drunk in public. And all I could see was England fans with, like, bulldogs tattooed on their, you know, their man boobs, just totally fucking bollocks at like 3 a.m. I just thought, have they got enough jails to lock up all these hooligans that are going to be bollocks in the World Cup? You know,
don't need jails, do you? No, I'm not going to go down that route. I just, yeah, we could get launched off this platform very quickly.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, let's just bite my tongue at that point. No, look. There are allowances been made now for certain things. So if they said you're allowed
fan
to drink
zones
in fan
and
zones
hotels
now
and
things, so I mean that's fine. But it's such a culture shock, and there will be plenty that get caught out by it. And look, I know much has been said about going and respecting other countries' cultures and stuff like that. That is a definite one.
You've got to,
whatever Middle Eastern country you were in, you have to respect the fact that alcohol is not, it's not widely sort of used outside of the home, outside of hotels. So people have got to be careful, and it's very easy to slip over that line, especially when you've had a couple. So there will be those that get caught out, but it's Jesus.
Woo. No Wetherspoons over there, mate. Holy shit.
Yeah. I mean, I cry at 360 or something a pint now. It's a tenner a pint.
Where are you drinking for 360 a pint at Social Club? Where are you drinking for that, mate?
You can tell I haven't been out in a while.
I was going to say, yeah, Mark was complaining at 360 back in 2003 when he went out for his last pint. I'm only joking. It's not been that long, mate. So Ian said the hotel's always allowed drinking, but the fan zones are getting wild. I totally agree. And I think when I was watching Neville, it was interesting because there were we've gone on a World Cup tangent here, but why not ask what What's Going On's all about? They haven't got enough hotel rooms, so they said they were going to put them on cruise ships, and they built this massive big dock, and they're going to dock like 2 or 3 huge cruise ships. And you're walking through them. My dad went on a cruise recently, and they're unbelievable. These cruise ships are just like, they're all hotels on the water. There was loads of bars and all that. And they showed this bit in the pool area, West Northern pool area, and they're going to bring tables and chairs up and a massive big screen for the game and all that. And I'm just, all I can think of looking at it, Gary Neville's looking over the balcony, all I'm thinking of, someone's going to puke in that, someone's going to have a shit there, someone's going to... I'm just thinking this cruise line is going to get absolutely...
This cruise line is going to be commonly known now as Easy Street from Whitley. That's it.
Yeah, sticky carpet. Oh, God. But and I was also thinking as well, could you imagine how unlucky you'd be if, like, Muriel and Frederick, booked their cruise in the World Cup and they're looking for a nice quiet cruise around Qatar, and then it's just England, la la, Vindaloo. They'd be absolutely devastated, wouldn't they? So I'm sure they won't do that, mate. I'm sure they won't do that. But, yeah, Roger's giving you a heads up here, mate. He's backing you up here. So he said even his what's that? His CIU has Guinness at 3.30 a pint. It's open at 12.30.
Consumer advice once again. I like it.
Mate. It's what I love about what's going on. We've got geopolitics. We've got economic pint prices. Absolutely brilliant, mate. Absolutely love it. But
go back a week or two. I was going to say go back a week. We're on the subject of prices. Star bars were sold out in my local Asda last week. I was disappointed.
Oh, there you go, man. That's devastating for you, man. There is actually, just Ash is saying, the last pint he bought was 360. He's not had a drink for a year and a half. to be fair, mate. It probably jumped up 360 in a week, Ash, to be fair. But there is a couple of boozers, if you search them out, they are quite cheap, to be fair. But even most pints now, like you go down the fish quay or something, you're looking at £5 a pint or something, man. In North Shields, you just think, wow, that's just what the fuck has happened to the world when that's the case, mate. That's scary, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just insane. I'm just wondering what that clicking noise is going on. I think the cat's underneath the sideboard clicking away at something.
Oh, the co-host. Yeah. Well, do you know?
Apologise for him, but he looks like he's about to jump on us. So there you go.
We've rambled on about the World Cup. We might as well shift on to the next section, mate, as a not so perfect segue. But we've obviously got lads going to the World Cup, mate, which is absolutely class. I love this. Yeah, 3:30 in your local Monkeys. It was great. We're going to get as many pints in as we possibly can here. I absolutely love this. So our lads are obviously away at the World Cup. We saw brilliant pictures, as I said there, about Callum Wilson just looking dashing in his England tracksuit, mate, with Kieran Trippier and obviously Nick Pope in tow. Do you know, I was looking at the England squad, right? And I completely forgot Marcus Rashford even got in the England squad. I looked at him and I went, fuck's he doing there? Because I totally forgot he even got in. It's because that's how shit Man United have been.
Yeah, to be fair, Rashford, he's picked up a little bit this season from last season. So am I sure he deserves a place in there? Probably not. But
no.
If he continues on form, then, and he does give you options from multiple positions as well, I guess. So he's a useful player to have in there. Plenty of pace. Come on late in the game when others are tired and stuff like that. It's probably worthwhile shout, but I think there are probably a couple of others that might have deserved that a little bit more.
I'll tell you who else could have been good for England in multiple positions is Big Dan Burn. Big Dan Burn actually was quoted in saying, and this is another thing I love about Big Dan Burn, backing his confidence and his ability. He said that he felt he was unlucky not to get a chance. Yeah. He said he backed himself. He thought he was in for a shout. He said there's not many left-sided centre-backs in the England squad, certainly not playing at the level I'm playing at, and I thought, hey, fucking good on you, mate.
I've just picked up that comment there. Well done, Aaron. I love it.
Aaron, that's superb, mate. The love boat with JT as the captain, mate. Absolutely. Could you imagine? Yeah. They'd be like, why is the door locked? What's all this gas? Passed out. Wake up with John Terry full kit ready to go. Fucking hell. Jesus, Aaron. What a scary thought, mate. What a scary thought.
Man.
We've gone off one here. But obviously we've got five going to the World Cup, I think you said, mate, haven't we? So we have got, there's more than five, isn't there? So we've got 3 from England. So we've got Trips, we've got Pope, we've got Wilson, we've got Bruno, we've got Shaw's going.
Shaw.
And Garang Kuol.
I forgot about him.
Yes.
My apologies. It is 6.
Yeah. How could you forget about him? Did you not see the goal he scored the other day?
I know.
What a finish, man. How good is he?
I think in my defence, he's not quite there at the club yet, so I kind of forgot about him. But
I'll let you off. Yeah. He's TBC, isn't he? But it was a hell of a finish, mate, wasn't it? Lovely touch. He killed it dead, and then to smash it in the back of the net like he did, it was absolutely class, to be fair. And yeah, I totally agree with that comment by the coin of phrase. You mentioned this, Mark, in the chat. How good must Holland's defence be to not take the Botman? Like, what was that about?
I mean, they're my favourites for the World Cup now. If they can afford to not take Sven Botman, the form that kid is in, then nobody's got a hope of scoring a goal, because they must be immense, or the manager must be stupid. But
mind you, though, it was 7 minutes of injury time, because Botman did go down more times than Talisa on Saturday night, didn't he, against Chelsea, mate? Because he was hobbling a bit, bless him. So I think the break could do the Botman quite good, I think, mate, to be honest with you. But I agree with you. He's very unlucky not to go. Quite interesting, actually. I just booked up our family sweepstakes for the World Cup. I don't know if anyone in the comments is doing the same. So we had one random selector from the wheel, and then we had one pick your own team. So I picked Brazil as my favourites, and then who did I get? The random selector I got Poland 150-1. I keep thinking Lewandowski, can he do it for me, mate? So who's your money on for the World Cup, Mark?
I
can't say England. I'm turning your mic off if you say England.
Honestly, I can't see us getting past the quarters. I think we'll run up against France in the quarterfinals and get put out. And I think that'll be Southgate on his way.
I think he's gone anyway. I think he's gone anyway. I don't think he'll stay.
So I think we'll get through the group. I said this on the Coleman had a dream.
Di's podcast
with Di.
Check that out, guys, in the comments if you haven't already. Di's brilliant on that. We love that show. He's class as Di.
It is a Welsh podcast, but we had three of us English chapters.
But not in Welsh. Not in Welsh. It's very important to clarify.
Not in Welsh. Although there were some of the comments that came in Welsh, and I'm looking at it going,
was it really?
No.
God, I wouldn't have got that.
And when he's saying it, I'm going, that's not what it looks like at all. And I've got Welsh family as well, and I'm looking at it, I haven't got a clue. But no, I said, I think we'll get through the group. I think we'll win the group. Not comfortably, but we'll go through as winners. Probably Senegal, last 16, tight, and then lose to France. I cannot see us getting past France. So
I don't disagree with that. Roger's right. France must be a canny bet. Their front three is just wow. You're totally right. I just think that France have got such a good squad. But I mean, Brazil look good as well. You know, we're going to talk about them in a minute, but Brazil look good as well. You know, they've got Bruno in the middle. So they've got to be in for a shout, to be honest with you. That's that song in everybody's head yet again, if it already left. But yeah, I mean, there's Argentina as well, you know, Messi's last chance. You know, that's something about that.
Both in the final. I went through the predictor thing and I've got a Brazil-Argentina final.
Oh, what a final, mate. What a final that would be. Oh, wow. What channel are you going to watch the World Cup, or what's your go-to channel? Are you going Beeb or are you going ITV? Whichever one Laura Woods is off.
I mean...
Evening, Laura.
You know what it is, right? Historically, I've always gone BBC. And I think it was... I go back to my dad used to work for them. So I think it was just kind of... That was almost my bias.
Yeah. She was on the BBC as well, so you know, Newcastle fan.
You know what? I do prefer some of the ITV commentators, especially if they get Ali on, because I think Ali McCoist is brilliant.
Coist is good.
He's so good at like local history and knowledge and stuff. I know it sounds mad, but he just manages to bring it in at random points in commentary. Like, what on earth? It's like the commentary for the Tour de France where you're seeing the chateaus and stuff, and they're talking about it, and you're like, how has Ali McCoist managed to get England versus, I don't know, Azerbaijan into a chat about some historic marketplace? And you're like, what on earth? But it's brilliant. It is brilliant. Listen.
Yeah, I'm loving that comment, Ash. That's absolutely superb, mate. Well done. And Tifa Lee saying, no ads, easy decision. I agree with that. The ads do piss you off. They really do, especially on ITV. If you ever watch anything on the ITV hub, there's more ads than there actually is TV shows, to be fair. Monkey saying he thinks France and Brazil final. Even that would be awesome, wouldn't it? France and Brazil final. I do think, I mean, Brazil have got to be in for a chance. And I mean, that takes us into probably quite a good segue into the next one, Mark, as well, doesn't it, really? Where, as we're talking about the World Cup, the Brazil manager, who has a really long name that I think I can't remember what it is now, but everyone calls him Tite for short, and he certainly made himself look like a bit of a Tite with the comment that he made recently, Mark. If you can just pull that up. So yeah, I say there he is. So it's Leonardo Bacchi. So he's talking about Joelinton here, and he's saying that he hasn't done anything significant in the top level yet. and he plays for a team that almost got relegated in England last season. He's obviously not watching this season, is he? There are many Brazilian midfielders across European and South American leagues who deserve chances, but we can't take everybody to Qatar. We have Casemiro, who's the best holding player in the world, really, and Fred, who starts in the pivot and makes, what was he saying? Makes our team press resistant. Yeah, press resistance due to the high work rate and fluidity. Lucas Paqueta, who's been shite, who plays as a creative playmaker, is our number 10, who also has world-class players like Fabinho awaiting his chance to start for the team in Qatar. I'm fully satisfied and confident with the squad that we've picked. We will bring the trophy back, says Tite. Well, I'm sorry, Tite, but you are a fucking Tite, because Joelinton is possibly the best holding midfielder in the Premier League, possibly in Europe. And Mark, you've even got stats to show it, mate, haven't you? Get the stats out for Tite.
Let's not jump too far ahead of ourselves. He's not the best in the world. You took, to coin a phrase, is that aimed at Chris or is that aimed at
that's
Tite?
aimed at Tite. That's aimed at Tite, mate. Tite.
Right.
So Mark keeps telling me off here, but we've got a new mic we're testing, and Mark keeps telling me off because it keeps making funny noises. So I keep going like this. I'm not on a roller coaster or anything. I keep going back and forward here. So we're adjusting. Go on, Mark.
Adjusting. No, look, Joelinton's been very good. And if you go back to when we did the Joelinton special and look at some of the stats we had compared with the best midfielders in the Premier League, and Tite's comment about, he hasn't done anything significant at the highest level. He's playing in the best league in the world against some of the best midfielders in the world, and he is bossing them.
Pissing on them.
You can't look at that and go, you've done nothing. So I had a quick look earlier, and I'll bring this up, and it is just a spreadsheet, and I do love a spreadsheet, so apologies.
You love a spreadsheet.
Random
IT crew alert. Mark loves a spreadsheet.
So here we go. So this was
at
the top of this. You might have to turn your screen round a blow up, but in terms of Joelinton versus, I've included Casemiro, Fred, and Fabinho because they're in the World Cup squad. I've also included Rice, Partey, and Højbjerg as part of the better midfielders in the league in sort of that midfield position. And obviously there's a lot of numbers on there, but I just went through and highlighted at the bottom of each sort of point. Where does Joelinton fit into that list of 7? And yes, there are some 7s in there. You'd expect that in terms of his pass, and he's not asked to be in amongst the ball playing side of it. Every other sort of part of that list, it's first, second, third, couple of 4s or couple of 5s. He's really at that level where he is competing amongst the best in the Premier League. And then let me just go back to, I compared the last couple of seasons against the ones actually in the Brazil squad. Totally. So you've got, again, Casemiro, Fred, Fabinho. I've thrown in Bruno and Paqueta and Everton Ribeiro as well, just as those are the other ones that are listed as midfielders. Now, sort of ignore the orange a little bit, but the orange basically is where Joelinton's score is above them in sort of 90 minute stats. And he sits above, if you particularly look at Fred, for example, there's not many categories that Fred beats him in. Again, with Casemiro, there's an awful lot of those that Joelinton scores on better across 90 minutes across the last 2 seasons. Now, let's bear in mind that for much of that, or for part of that, was under Steve Bruce when he wasn't being asked to play as a midfielder. And the next few games were against some of the better sides in the league where he's just starting out as a midfielder. The transformations we've done in the video before has been immense, but then to totally disparage what he's actually done and what he's actually doing at the moment, which is really bossing midfields, and he talks about fluidity as well, does Tite? What better sort of player than you want in there that gives you fluidity, because he can play multiple positions in that midfield and in that forward line as well, to give you the ability to change things up. And he's so strong, big and strong, that when you come up against some of those midfielders in the World Cup and you want somebody to manhandle them and boss them, there isn't another player in that Brazil squad that can do that. So
Absolutely.
it just smacks of a manager who hasn't watched an awful lot of Newcastle and hasn't taken it in, is just thrown it away basically.
Well, the worrying thing is he came to Newcastle when we played Villa, and he obviously came to watch Bruno. But Joelinton was fucking amazing in that game. What was he watching in that game? You know, he was head and shoulders probably one of the best players in the park. I totally agree with Gallagher Brown here saying, "You big hairy Tite." I love that, mate. He may not be the best, but one thing's for sure, he's better than Fred. I'd rather have Right Said Fred or Fred Dibner than Fred. never mind Joelinton.
Legend that is Fred Dibner.
Yeah, exactly. Tite indeed, he certainly is. And BT is just reminding you who's on what channel here. So he's got the BBC. If I get my teeth right, the BBC. I've got Didier Drogba, Pablo Zabaleta, Rio Ferdinand, Alan Shearer, Jurgen Klinsmann, Jermaine Genius, Mika Richards, Vincent Kompany, and Gilberto Silva. It's not bad, that, mate. He's probably got a PFA Team of the Year from 2006, possibly there. And ITV have got Gary Neville, Roy Keane, Ian Wright, Graham Souness among those in the studios, and obviously the lovely Laura Woods hosting in the studio.
To be fair,
Ash rightly pointed out.
If you're looking at those list of pundits, I know which side of the fence I'm going on, because I'm not sure I can sit there and I can listen to Souness whinging on for 3-4 weeks.
They'll only wheel Souness out in shite games, though, won't they? It'll be the shite game Souness comes out. They won't have him for the England game. They'll have Neville and Righty there, and then they won't. You'll sit there and just moan like a twat. Anyway. That's what Souness does, doesn't he?
I'd head BBC on that list.
Yeah, I would say so. I'd probably say so. It's just a shame that we'll just watch Laura introduce it, and we'll fuck off to the BBC and watch whatever game they've got. It's probably the best way to do it. So Jaconia Fraser's saying, and this is about Tite's comments, I agree with you there as well. So we can't be a third place Champions League standard team now because we were bottom at one point last season. And Roger agrees with us as well. Absolute nonsense. You're totally right. To coin a phrase, it just stinks of a lazy manager just not watching what we're doing. It's absolutely pathetic. It really is. I agree with Monkey here as well, Mark, that it's got nothing to do with how good players are. It's because they're playing for Newcastle. But I think if we continue on this season, I know we're going to talk about this on Evermore on Wednesday, but if we continue this season the way we're playing, if we finish where we are right now, they're going to have to look at Newcastle because we are going to be that team. We are going to be that Champions League side, that people are going to have to pay attention to. And it won't be a case of, he can't play for my national team because he plays for Newcastle. It'll be, he is playing for my national team because he plays for Newcastle. So that will be a difference, mate, won't it?
It will. I would say the Newcastle thing, I think I get that there's a sort of historic from but you've got to remember Bruno's there. Bruno's playing well and Bruno's getting picked. So
yeah,
the Newcastle angle doesn't come into that, I guess. But I just think it's, I can understand from a point, if you don't think he fits, that's fine. But to come out with a comment like he's come out with is ridiculous. All he had to come out with, he doesn't fit my plan.
Yeah, he's playing well, but he's not part of my plans.
Playing well.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll look at him again for the Copa or the next World Cup and stuff. That's all he has to say. But to come out and do that, it just gets everybody's backs up.
Do you not think, though, a lot of these old Brazilian players, I mean, they maybe played like for Brazil in the 70s or something and when they were mint and all that. I mean, they get these jobs, but they're always these like cantankerous, crusty old bastards, aren't they? Like Scolari and guys like him, just these miserable old fuckers who just moan like fuck about everything. And then, Bruno is obviously on the radar because he's Bruno, isn't he? He was on the radar when he was at Lyon as well. Do you know what I mean? Because that's how he got in the squad. But it's like, all right, I'm not looking outside of anybody but these set amount of players. It's almost like a Brazilian Gareth Southgate, isn't he, mate, to be fair? Roger's saying that J7 was out of position to start the Villa game. Absolutely. The Monkey is saying Laura Woods.
Yeah, that's very
come
true.
on, I've got to finish the Laura Woods comment.
Sorry.
So Laura Woods is a 10 out of 10. Don't tell me, missus, your secret is safe with us, Monkey. And Ash, you are 100% right, mate. This is the Laura Woods Appreciation Group. Laura is a closet Geordie, as she even said on Talk Sport, mate. So her dad's a Newcastle fan, so he didn't think you could love her even more. There you go, mate. Sorry, Mark. Go on. What were you saying?
No, just to come off the Woodsy Appreciation Group for a second.
Just 1 second.
Yeah. So Joelinton in the Villa game, I think there was a definitive plan, I think, with that, in playing him a bit further forward to try and get him up against the Villa defence at that point. And then when things weren't quite so fruitful in that regard, they dropped him into that midfield to really dominate at that point, and really did the same again at the weekend, where you just visibly saw him drop a little bit deeper and just become more physical in the centre of the park. And there isn't another midfielder in the country at the moment that has Joelinton's physicality. He's so strong in that regard. He doesn't get knocked off the ball. Yes, he's not brilliant with it in terms of his passing range or anything like that, but he's so flipping effective. And he does everything well. And like I say, if you look at those stats, he's always in those higher numbers, especially when you put him up against some of the best in the league.
Absolutely, mate. No, I couldn't agree with you more. And as we rightly said, what a Tite is what he is, mate. What a Tite this lad has made himself out to be. Watch a game, mate. Bloody pay attention. Look how good Joelinton is. But Joelinton's still young, as I think a lot of people have said, mate. His time will come, as a Newcastle United Twitter page tweeted as well, after the squad was announced. If Joelinton keeps these levels up, he can't be ignored forever for the Brazilian squad. And, they might have a change of manager, like I say, Tite might win it and bugger off, or he might not win it and then bugger off still. Who knows, mate? Who knows? But there is one person who's going to be at the World Cup in Qatar, and he's been making the headlines recently. Now, we are not a Manchester United podcast by any stretch. We did used to have a nice relationship with one, but we are not a Manchester United podcast. But with this being such a big football story, I had to talk about this, Mark. We had to mention this in what's going on tonight, because this is the forum where you can talk about everything, not just Newcastle United, other stuff as well. So if anyone doesn't know, Cristiano Ronaldo has basically done this shocking exclusive interview with Piers Morgan, of all people, Arsenal fan and fangirl of Ronaldo, Piers Morgan. He's done this interview with him, and he's come out with these ridiculous statements. And some of it probably does carry a bit of truth to it, in terms of the Glazers not investing in the infrastructure and everything else, and sacking Ollie and everything else. But then he slagged off Ralph Rangnick, and then the worst thing he's done, Mark, is he's obviously taken aim at Eric Ten Hag. I mean, Ronaldo, what an absolute fucking wank he is, really. Forget the fact that he's a mint footballer. He's just a complete ball bag, isn't he? PK turns around and says, no dickhead policy. This guy is the manifestation of no dickhead policy, isn't he, mate? What a state of a bloke.
He's really shown himself up, hasn't he? And I get that there are things that have kind of not been right at the club. But you get on with it. You don't walk off down the tunnel. You don't start slagging off the manager when you're still an employee of the club. If you're asked to do a job by the manager, you do it. You don't throw a hissy fit because you are supposedly the greatest player in the world, and you can't come on for a couple of minutes at the end of a game when you're asked to, because that's your job. And then come out. I get there is the sort of another angle with it, because there are things that have come out of the club that shouldn't have come out of the club, and I think not one to give what's his face Goldbridge a platform of stuff, but he did a video earlier that I actually agreed with a lot of, in terms of the stuff that's come out of the Man United camp. In that it must be certain players, and you tend to find it that the English journalists, their sources tend to be the British players in the squad. Now, that doesn't leave an awful lot of room for who that could probably be out of Manchester United, in terms of also of players that are, a bit upset with the way things have gone on. But I just, it just doesn't look good for him at all. And you think you are brilliant as a footballer. You have been brilliant for 20 years. Just shut your mouth and just get on with your job. If you want to go, that's fine. Nobody's going to bat an eyelid if you go, because you're not the same Ronaldo that was there before. You're not the same Ronaldo that was at Juventus or I nearly said Barcelona, Christ almighty, at Real Madrid.
Even they wouldn't take him, mate. Even they wouldn't take him right now.
It's just, I'm not go as far as saying you're tarnishing your legacy, but you leave a bad taste in the mouth with people, because this is the last really big club that you're going to be at, because your next trip is going to be to the MLS or somewhere like that, and no one will remember that. So this is your last big club that you're going to play for, and it's the club that really picked you up from and made you the star. Have a little bit of respect for the club as a whole. Don't have a go at the current manager, because to be fair, he's doing a decent job. And if he was really that bad after you were dropped for that game for having walked out on the team, he then made you captain when you came back. What do you want? What is? I get there are things that are wrong, but what more do you want from your manager at that point? Just get on with your job. Shut up. Don't do ridiculous. It's like Lukaku again. Don't do these ridiculous interviews, and just get on with it. Yeah, you might not be happy. Fine, ask to leave. I'm 99.9% certain Manchester United will go, fine, you can go in January. We'll let you leave for nothing.
Yeah, I definitely think he's on his bike. I mean, it's an interesting comment from BT. What would Howe have done and said in the Ronaldo situation? For starters, I don't think Eddie Howe would ever let him in the club. I think he would have said no, because you just know he's going to be trouble, because obviously Howe wants to build that harmonious feeling. And he also did say, didn't he, on that High Performance podcast, Eddie Howe, that he's more interested in the team feeling and the team doing well for each other as opposed to the individual. Ronaldo's all about the individual. He's not about the team at all. So I don't think Howe would have put himself in that situation. But had he been in it already, I think he probably would have been quite respectful of what a player Ronaldo is and what he's done in his career. But he has to understand he's part of a squad, and I think he would have been really straight down the middle with him. And I think the board would have had to have backed Eddie Howe. Ten Hag, I think, has handled himself really well during all of this. I think he's come across really well. And if anything else, his kind of class that he's handled himself with during this whole scenario just makes him look a better manager in front of those Manchester United fans' eyes, and it makes Ronaldo look like an even bigger prick than he already is. As Monkey's even said there, Ronaldo's a 38-year-old man-child who spat his dummy out because he knows he's finished at the highest level. He has moments, Mark, doesn't he? Moments where he can pop into a game and he can do things like that, but his ego is so out of check. Like, he had a go at Rooney, didn't he? And I think it's the media mischief making, really, when he said, I don't know why Rooney's saying that about me. Maybe it's because, I look good, still. And everyone's saying, he's basically saying Rooney's an ugly bastard. Now, listen, Wayne Rooney is an ugly bastard. But that's not what he's saying, right? What he's trying to say, I think, is that he's still playing as a footballer and Rooney's not, right? But all Rooney said was, it's hard for him because he wants to be the man. He wants to start every week, and age catches up on everybody. That's just what Rooney said. Because Rooney is a grown-up. Rooney is a manager now. And he's talking like a grown-up. He's not talking like a, fucking somebody from the Cobra Kai in the Karate Kid movies thinking he's the best around. Nothing's ever going to fucking keep him down. You know what I mean? I mean, get over yourself, Ronaldo. Christ almighty, man. Like, I just don't get it, Mark.
Yeah, look, I think it is that. I think there is an ultimate frustration with him, isn't there? That he's not what he was, and he can't quite handle that. Like, others have accepted the fact that they're not the player they were before. Rooney especially, I think, recognised that he wasn't the player. That's when we started to see him drop further and further back to do different roles and to try and stay in the game as long as he could. But ultimately, it was time to move on and time to call it a day. And I think we're starting to see Ronaldo past the point where he's no longer peak enough to play at the highest level. He is still playing at the highest level, but he's nowhere near the standard that you would expect of Ronaldo.
I totally agree. That's a great shout too, Leroy. Maybe Arsenal should sign him, screw their team spirit, and we can win the league. I love that, mate. I love the fact that he's looking for a cerebral plan for Newcastle United there. Absolutely brilliant. JV's saying that Man United haven't got a no dickhead policy. Never like Ronaldo. He's a Christmas. Oh, okay. I'm not sure what that means.
Is that a play on the C word that I used that before?
Very possibly, Jimmy. Very possibly, Jimmy. Yeah, not very festive, Jimmy, but I love it. So Jack is saying that mad that he's whinging about not getting respect from the coach after spending all summer trying to convince several other clubs across Europe to bid for him unsuccessfully. Yeah, as Alanis Morissette would say, Mark, isn't it ironic? But I mean, nobody's going to buy this guy, right? For numerous reasons. You just hit the nail on the head there, Mark, right? He's not the player that he once was. He has moments, yes, but are you going to pay 600 grand a week for moments, little moments in the season? You're not going to pay that. You want to pay that for consistency. And if you're going to put him in your team, like say Chelsea, people talk about Chelsea, right? If Chelsea signed him, which would be the most batshit crazy thing ever, Graham Potter might as well just chuck his
But
notes
very
in.
Chelsea.
Yeah, but very Chelsea.
Haven't signed Aubameyang, which is just equally as ridiculous.
Exactly. I could see Chelsea doing this, but could you imagine? I mean, Potter would just be away, wouldn't he? Potter would go straight back to Hogwarts quicker than you could say Expelliarmus, mate. He'd be fucking gone. But if he goes to Chelsea and he's gonna want to play every single week, right? And you won't be able to keep up with the pace of the players around him. They'll get frustrated, start shouting at Mason Mount and shouting at these other players, and and just you don't need that in your side, mate. It just causes so much disharmony in the squad, doesn't it?
It does. You can't have players acting like you really can't, and your club's in a bit of bot when you've got that coming out of the dressing room. We've seen it before. Where there were rumours that were flying out of the dressing room last time. When you've got that sort of thing around, it just tears it apart, and you lose that team method. Look at what Newcastle have at the moment. We'll bring it back to Newcastle. Look at that group togetherness at Newcastle. And then look at Manchester United and go what problem is there? It's because they're all individually apart from each other, don't they? There's no cohesive sort of plan
there's no togetherness, there's no unity, exactly. Is there? Yeah. They just want to know how good they are. What are their stats all like?
I mean, and they got rid of the biggest problem in that regard in Pogba. Because he was the one that really drove that individualistic side of the players there, and you thought, well, with him gone, maybe they can get that team, that team ethic back. But Ronaldo's just kind of taken his place, and it's just
even worse though. I mean, at least Pogba danced. There was a dance number involved. Rather than just being a knob.
Yeah, I mean that's fair, but it does, like I said before, it just leaves a bit of taste because he's been such a good player and he's always kind of really done the right thing for people, and he's never really come across that. But you start to see maybe he's let the veil slip a little bit, and you're just starting to see the true Ronaldo. And he's just, like I said, I think he's just got to the end and just can't handle the fact that that he's not the player he was.
He can't hack it anymore. As Jack says there, he thinks he's entitled to respect no matter what he does. And the monkey says you don't give respect, you don't get respect. It's as simple as that. I love Ash's comment here. He's saying, well, that's that tune in my head for the rest of the night as he sits there in his Cobra Kai hoodie. Absolutely class. Mark's just disappeared there to probably deal with one of his many animals, but I'm sure he'll love that one when he comes back. Ash, and we've got BT as well as saying that he's back and he's smiling. I knew you'd like that one. Ronaldo accused Gary Neville of criticising him only to boost his own fame before declaring him and Wayne Rooney are not friends of his. I mean, even that was fucking pathetic, wasn't it? With the blanking of Neville on the telly. I mean, like, I would love Gary Neville to just say, "You little shithouse." I remember fucking helping you speak English when you were 19. Don't turn your back on me, little fucking knob. That's what he should have said to him. I think Neville would have had more respect then, mate. I think if he said that, but it was pathetic, man.
Yeah, look, it's the bitter end now, isn't it? Where those sort of things, you just, I think it's time. We said it. It's time for him to go. It's time for him to move on. If he's not happy, just leave in January. That's you've got a couple of months now to wait until you can just walk away. I can't see the club holding him to ransom for fees now because it's past that. Nobody's going to pay anything for him. His wages are going to be, demands are too high. The fact that he's 38 years old and still getting $500,000 a week is ridiculous in itself.
But look at the two of them though. How Gareth Bale conducted himself and how he was getting treated at Real Madrid. Bale wasn't causing bother like that. He was just getting on with stuff. Do you know what I mean? And
playing golf.
And playing golf, obviously being Mr. Scratch himself. But as Roger says there, I'm not dissing his football quality, that he was or is the best, but what a prick, getting the media on his side, one way, ego boosting, absolutely. And New Monkey saying he'll end up finishing his career at Sporting, which I've heard a lot of people say that I'll get one last payday in the MLS or Saudi Arabia even. That's a bit of a claim. I love Jimmy's back with the one-liner. Rooney was mint, but he never turned up for training during visiting hours. Fucking superb, Jimmy. We know what he was up to, mate. And two Lira saying, Ronaldo got any mates? I can't remember anyone claiming that they're his friend. Ronaldo only tells us who isn't his friends. I think the problem is when you become such an egomaniac and a narcissist like Ronaldo's become, you end up hanging around with other equally narcissistic ball bags like Piers Morgan. So that's probably one of his close friends, I'd imagine, mate.
He beat me to that one.
I could see great minds think alike, mate. Great things about like. And BT saying Rooney and Cristiano should get, said it should get his head down and work to be ready to play when the manager needs you. I think if he does, it'll be an asset. And then, I mean, what's wrong with what Rooney said there? There's nothing wrong with what Rooney said there, because he just can't take it, can he? Because people aren't kissing his ass. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And do you know what, Monkey? I was going to say that as well. When he smashed the autistic lad's phone as well, he lost all respect for him, especially having a daughter with autism. Disgusting behaviour. You're right, mate. What a terrible example that sets for kids as well, Mark, doesn't it? I mean, you have a word with yourself, man. You're meant to be your role model for millions of kids around the world. Do you know what I mean? Just disgusting. Lizard-throated curd. Absolutely club. You know, we're going to move away from Ronaldo. We'll be whinging about this prick all night, but yeah, absolutely disgraceful, man. Absolutely disgraceful. But we're going to finish up with something that's a bit controversial, actually, Mark, isn't it? So we saw this on Twitter. Our very own Lee had mentioned this as well. So there's been a lot of talk about redesigning of badges, following Aston Villa's redesigning of their badge, and obviously there was a tweet that went out. Just going to get that tweet up, Mark, if you've got it there. Have you got it, mate? Do you want to? Yeah. Oh no, the other one. Sorry, we're just going to race each other to the button there. That's the one. So this is the tweet that come out that Lee had retweeted. So this is from Magpie Media. It said, "Would you be open to a new modern redesigned badge?" Newcastle United fans, and most people kind of met it with a massive big no, didn't they, Mark? But you wanted to point out that we have done this before in the past. I don't think we should do, and we'll get onto what you think and then what the other guys think in a minute. But you just wanted to mention this, didn't you? That we have done this before in the past, haven't you?
Yeah. So there is precedent in the past for it. Over the last sort of 60 years, there has been different badges used. You go back to those two up to 1983. The NUFC from 83 to 88, and then the current one, which has been there since. I know I was saying this before we came on, and I know it's got a bit of a cult following, but I just think it's awful. Was it on that horrible grey shirt?
It was that grey away shirt, wasn't it? Yeah. That was Greenalt's. The Greenalt's sponsor, was it Greenalt's? Or no, was it Newcastle Brown? It's when Newcastle Brown came. I can't
remember. I just remember it being vile, and it's one of those horrible ones, like some of the brown shirts that have been around, and just the horrible, like not Newcastle specific in those ones, but just some of those that have knocked around. So there is precedent for that to happen, and we've seen over recent years other clubs that have updated their badges, and I think the line for some of these are a lot more commercial around them, especially when you go to the likes of sort of the Inter Milan and the Juve ones are very sort of computerized, like IBM or Apple, or they've got that flavor to them that the soul seems to have been sucked out of them completely. And then you look at the likes of Arsenal and West Ham and City there, and you see the similarities in what Newcastle's badge currently is, where you've got the badge, you've got the sort of the banner underneath it, and especially with City's with the wings there as well. That there's a definite resemblance to what the current Newcastle badge is, and you just think, well, the other ones look. I said before that they've had the soul sucked out of them. They do look soulless. And I just think for Newcastle to move away from that now would be, I don't think that's the right thing to be doing. There are certainly more important things to be looking at. Maybe in the future. Do you know what I mean? But for now, I think that the badge is there. I think it's the one that is very. You've just brought that shirt up, haven't you?
Yeah, I was going to say. I was just doing some digging in the background as you were talking there.
It
actually looks quite nice with the blue star on, but I don't like the badge.
Who's that? It's not my cup of tea at all. But no, I think the Newcastle badge is one of those. I'll not say sacred things. A little bit like St James's. I just don't think it should be touched.
Yeah, I agree. And some of the guys in the comments are saying the same thing. Peter's saying he loves our badge. Jimmy's saying I prefer our crest. It looks more dated than Love Thy Neighbour. David's a bit late to the party, but he's listening from the beginning. Good to see you there in the comments, David. And just a couple of comments there about Ronaldo as well. Ian is saying he wants to see him stay for Manchester United forever. It's great. I don't think he will, though, mate. And John North is saying about the badge, Mark, it's just another commercial stunt. Leave it as it is. I totally agree with you. I mean, as you say, there's loads more that needs to be addressed. The training ground, sponsorship deals, corporate. I mean, even the stadium naming, which I think will probably be on the last shoes to fall, so to speak. But the badge is fine. I mean, you can see there in the bottom of our screen. You can see our badge as well, which is very similar but different. You can see the Newcastle badge. It's an iconic badge, Mark, isn't it? That's Newcastle United, that badge. Why change it? Why change it?
And that in itself, if you look back at the original one, it does hark back to those days with the seahorse, with the castle, with the lion and the flag. So it very much goes back to those days, but in a much more modern way. And it doesn't look dated. You look at that badge now, and it's not like somewhere you could go, do you know what? It does look tired. It does look old, and it might need a refresh. It stands out, and it does represent the club. And it is an iconic badge. It's not unknown. Do you know what I mean? It's not like others where you go, who's that? I'm not sure. Yes, it does say Newcastle United on it, so the clue's there. But even without that, instantly who that badge is. Doesn't matter where you are.
Of course you do. With the black and white crest, mate. Absolutely. I mean, I think there was always a danger, wasn't there, when the club was bought, and obviously as much as we were buzzing and we were loving the fact that we were going to, have money pumped into the club and have people, obviously invest in the club and take us to where we want to be. There's always that worry, wasn't there, that those traditional values of the club and the heritage of the club, the legacy of the club might be under threat. And I'm just really happy to not see that. Yes, you can change the training complex, you can change the sponsors. They can have their own bloody sponsored Newcastle plane by Saudi Arabian Airlines. They could even eventually change the stadium, right? But just leave some stuff alone. Leave the badge alone. There's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. We don't need to change it.
No, and this hasn't been the club at all. This not that this is something that would come off a social media account. So we'll not give it too much here. But it is a conversation that would start to happen, especially with other clubs having done similar things. So you're always going to get that next potential commercial thing that they can look at and go, will this stand out to people? So. But yeah, leave it alone. Leave a little bit of heritage there for us, for God's sake, and don't change the world just because you can.
Absolutely. As John says, the badge looks well in the jersey. Just leave it well enough. No, that's a great way to wrap up, mate, for what's going on tonight. So we really enjoyed doing this. Thank you so much to everybody in the comments. It always helps the episode flow. We love chatting to you. We love the little chat that you have amongst yourselves as well. We sometimes get distracted and read that sometimes. Totally. Especially Mark. He just goes off listening to my dulcet tones.
To be honest, it's normally the likes of Jimmy and Ash. I was going to say, it's normally the likes of Jimmy and Ash and that in the comments, and I'm sitting reading the comments, howling with laughter at it, wondering what in the hell you're talking about. So,
absolutely, mate. Well, nothing changes, mate. You've been like that for years with me anyway. So, yeah, good night to you too, Ash. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks a lot, Peter. We really appreciate that.
Cheers,
as I mentioned at the start, if you haven't already, if you're new to the channel, please consider clicking that like and subscribe button. If you're watching us on the repeat, thank you so much for joining us. Smash the button, try and help us get to our next milestone, which will probably be 2,500, and then we'll hopefully push on to 3,000 after that. And we're going to be back on Wednesday with the boys. That'll be our kind of last proper Evermore of the season before the break. But we are. I
was going to call you up on that because you kept saying the last Evermore, and I'm going, it's not the last one. It's just the last proper.
I've had enough. I've had enough.
Related one until December. Christ, it's up. That's it, folks.
It's like I've got an interview with Piers Morgan next week to tell him how disgusted I am at the lack of infrastructure in the podcast, mate. That's what it is. I'm just letting you know.
I agree. To be fair, it's chaos.
Absolutely, mate. But we'll be back on Wednesday with the lads. But we aren't going to disappear in the World Cup. We are going to pop in with some videos. We've got some specials planned, and then also we'll be doing some World Cup crack as well. Me and Mark will be looking at maybe some of the England squad and just look at how we think the lads are going to do in the World Cup. And the Morning Magpie will have a bit of a World Cup feel, Mark, won't it? With little videos popping up just to see how the lads are doing over the tournament. So yeah, loads more Evermore coming, guys. We're not going to disappear.
And so I would just before you go, and as well, because there's nothing to do for the next sort of 6 weeks, Newcastle related in terms of matches. the transfer rumours are going to go nuts
Oh,
from
yes.
now on, aren't they? So there we go. We can expect some more rumour has it videos as well. So
absolutely. So we'll have loads of content as always. But so this is Chris and Mark signing off. We've been chatting about what's going on. What's going on is it's time for bed now. So everyone have a good one, and we'll catch you on Wednesday with the rest of the boys for Evermore. See you later.
See you guys.